All right, let's have a look at this idea of creating high performance, which is absolutely critical. I mean, if it's you and your business, you want to be performing at your best at all times. If you're leading a team, if you're part of a team, you want the team to be performing at its best at all times. Now that's ideal, obviously, but that's the goal, surely, right? To have everyone performing at their best all the time. This only happens, and this is a really important concept, right? This only happens when people feel safe and they feel able to take risks. If people don't feel that safety, they won't take risks. Now, I'm not talking about spending lots of money on various things I'm talking about taking little risks, stepping outside the comfort zone, taking on challenges that perhaps they might not have taken on last week, last month, last year. Why is this important? Well, because all businesses run very tightly now. No one has got slack when it comes to people. And what it means is when a challenge comes up, if a client has a problem, if there's a supply problem, whatever it might be, if something hasn't been delivered when it should have been delivered, or, a client isn't happy with a service, you want people to step up and take on that challenge of solving that problem. Because if they don't, where's it going to land? It's going to land on your desk. And now you've got something else to handle. You've got something else to deal with on top of everything else. And your to-do list is growing, and things that you want to get done aren't get done because you're dealing with what's urgent. You want to be creating a culture and encouraging an environment where people feel they can take risks. Now, a lot of people won't do this and don't do this because they fear the loss of control. And I get that. I've been in that place myself. I've had employees, and it's a very scary place to get to, or it can be, if you don't know how to do it. So that's the first thing. You create high performance when you enable people to feel they can take risks safely. High performance comes when people are prepared to go the extra mile. There's a great saying that I really love this saying. There's no such thing as a queue in the extra mile. Look, and you'll know this yourself. Just think of all the service issues you've had. You've bought something, maybe you bought it online, maybe it's been in a shop, whatever it might be, whether it's personal, whether it's for your business. And it takes forever. It's really difficult. If there's a problem, it takes forever, and it's really difficult to get it sorted out. And you just want someone who's willing to sort of listen to you, understand your problem, your challenge, what it is you need as a solution, and work with you to get it and do it quickly. How often do you get that? How often do you want it? How often do you get it? The two things usually don't equate. Well, do you want that in your business? Do you want yourself to be able to go the extra mile? Do you want to go the extra mile? Do you want your team to go the extra mile? Well, I'm sort of guessing you do, right? That's when great performance happens. And, this is the next one. People must be willing to take responsibility. What do I mean by that? And it's in a way, it's very similar to taking a risk. It means that if they've been involved in something that hasn't worked out the way perhaps you were planning, they're willing to stand up and say, hey, listen, that was down to me. I did this, I did that. They're not going to do that if they feel that it's a career-threatening thing to be open and honest. Very often, the reason, if you're a team leader, if you're a team, if you run a business and you've got a team, if you're a team leader, very often the reason people will keep coming back to you and saying, hey, I don't know what to do, what do I do here? Is because they aren't willing to take responsibility, and that's your biggest frustration with them. You want them to take responsibility, but they're not. Well, if you don't understand the psychology of responsibility, how can you turn that around? All that's going to happen is you're going to get more and more frustrated with that person. That person's going to get more and more frustrated with you, and you're on the path to potentially having someone that is actually quite good at their job wanting to leave. And then that gets you into all the costs and challenges of what that means. There's a thing called psychological safety, which is the current buzz term around this. You might be thinking, well, here we go. Here's this soft, fluffy stuff again. The marshmallow management. Be nice to people. Don't be horrible. Don't be hard. Don't be aggressive. All that sort of stuff. And it's not about that. It's not about being soft. It's not around backing off difficult decisions. But this is what people find hard because they don't know how to have difficult conversations in such a way that people feel good about it, that it addresses the important issues. It helps people to learn to overcome perhaps limitations and lack of experience. If you don't have the skill to have that difficult conversation in such a way that the other person feels good about it, you're not going to feel confident, and they're not going to feel that they want to take those risks, take responsibility. They're not going to feel they want to go the extra mile, right? This is all psychology. It's a circular conversation. So look, I want to give you this is a very famous case study of a company called Tessai in Japan. They were a cleaning company. They were charged with getting on the fast trains and cleaning them so that, at a turnaround station, the old passengers would get off, the cleaning staff would get on, and they had literally a few minutes to clean the whole train before the next set of passengers got on. And there were challenges around that. To be honest, it wasn't really working the way they wanted. So they brought in a new manager, and the manager decided to do things very differently. Instead of keeping the cleaning team hidden, instead of trying to keep them out of public sight, he gave them visibility. He gave them uniforms, nice, smart uniforms. He gave them a sense of pride, and he made them very public. He made them feel part of the overall service. It wasn't just about the technology of the train. It wasn't just about the driver and the serving staff on the train who sort of gave that customer experience. They became part of the customer experience. It's like, you get on a clean train because we are part of that. So the team started to feel pride in what they did. He also enabled all of these cleaning staff to actually engage in conversations with people on the train. Whereas before they'd been told not to talk, now they were encouraged. They were encouraged to have human connection. So they felt better, and they felt literally more human. He encouraged something called angel reports, which is staff giving in good reports about each other, saying good things about each other. What do you think that did for the feeling of teamwork and connection? Yeah, it worked really well. And he also encouraged the idea of innovation from below. So, if you've ever seen the TV series Undercover Boss, you'll know that the person at the cutting edge, at the leading edge of the connection between customers and the organization, always has ideas on how things can be better, how things can be improved. And this new manager encouraged that. And the net result was the teams started to perform within the timescales that were necessary. They took the cleaning times down from 10, 12, 15 minutes back down to the sort of 7-8 minute timescale that they wanted, so they could get a good turnaround. But one of the most interesting things that happened was that customers became more thoughtful, and they stopped leaving as much rubbish on the trains. They started to leave the trains in a state which was much easier for the teams to actually deal with, because they saw that the people doing the cleaning were real people. So look, if you're struggling with this idea of psychology and why you should get an understanding of it, get involved with it, bring it in as part of how you lead and manage, just have a think about that, because it has real effect. Look, there's an old joke. I really love this joke. A finance director is talking to his CEO, and he says, "What if we spend all this money training and looking after our people and they leave?" And the very wise CEO just turns around to him and looks and says, "Yes, but what if we don't train them and don't look after them and they stay?" And that really led to this. Richard Branson, very famous for this quote, particularly around his Virgin airline. I think it applies in most Virgin companies from what I understand. Train people well enough so they can leave, treat them well enough so they don't want to. It's up to you. You can choose not to, you can choose to. One of them is going to create a certain direction for you and your business, and the other path will take a different line for you. My recommendation is understand the psychology.